I think one of the most interesting things about the Delta is it is almost its own place in the world. Um, you've got almost the rest of Mississippi, but for me, whenever I drive west on Highway 82, you come down this hill right outside of Carroll County, kind of goes around, and all of a sudden, it's just flat. There's nothing. It's just flat. Couple houses, couple trees. It's just all farm field. And that was a very interesting welcome. I've never seen the state like that before. Usually there's too many trees. You can never see a horizon almost. And out there, I mean, you get some of the most beautiful sunsets I've ever seen, just because it's so flat. And it's got a very interesting history. There's a lot of culture, a lot of things have gone on there, some good, some bad. It's just almost a place that's living in modern times, but it's almost stuck in the past in a lot of ways. The culture there is I would say it's very fun. It's very unique. You meet some of the most nicest people you can find, some of the best food you can find. They've catfishes everywhere. Their farms are right there. You won't find any better produce. And the people there are incredibly kind. They're salt of the earth. They'll do almost anything you ask. And, it's just a very unique place. And for me, what keeps me there is when I first went over there, what drew me to the area is I've always wanted to go to the Delta. I've been to every part of the state but the Delta. And all I've ever heard was how good of the athletes that were there. There's a lot of hard times that have gone through the area, but for some reason they just churn out world-class athletes. And they come from these small schools like Amanda Elsie High School or Greenwood High School or Fort County, and even in other counties, Cleveland and Greenville and stuff like that, places most people never go, but, like Mississippi Valley, most people don't know about that place, but they've produced, I think, more NFL Hall of Famers than the state has. Jerry Rice, who's one of the greatest football players of all time outside of being a receiver, he went to this school. And in the 1980s, they rocked the world. I mean, they set so many records back then, it wasn't even funny. And I remember talking to people, because when Archie Cooley, the coach of that team, he died, I did an obituary on him, and I talked to one of the sports editors at the Commonwealth at the time back in the 80s. I called him up and asked him what it was like to cover Archie Cooley and the Delta Devils back then. And they were doing so many things that people, when they've heard of it, thought it wasn't real. And the coaches would send them the tapes and be like, y'all don't believe he hit 300 receiving yards? Count them yourself. And they would send them the tapes. It's just, for some reason, this place is trapped in its own sort of time zone, but in sports-wise, they just churn out some of the most talented athletes you will ever see. Where I work, we cover 7 high schools. The 3 in the town of Greenwood, essentially Greenwood High School, Amanda Elsie, or 4 counties, a little bit down the road in Itta Bena. We also cover Pillow Academy, which is a prep school, and we also cover the 2 schools in Carroll County, J.Z. George High School and Carroll Academy. What was the question again?
Just talk about some of the things.
Okay, so the main thing I do, as far as coverage-wise, is a lot of high school sports. Football is by far the biggest thing. People love football in the area, and so it matches well with me because I also love football. I love to cover it. I love to talk to the people who play the game. We also do basketball. A lot of great basketball players have come through that area. I mean, many people never heard of and probably won't, just because life sometimes gets them after they graduate high school, where they just have not been seen by some of these bigger schools, so where they just don't go play in front of a bigger audience. But when you think of like a guy like Alfonso Ford, who played at Amanda Elsie High School, he went on to play at Valley, and I think in the early 90s, he was the NCAA's leading scorer as a freshman. I mean, he was an incredible player. He was drafted in the NBA, didn't get to do much there, but he went overseas and had a really good career. I think he's in the Greek basketball, their league's Hall of Fame. They retired. His jersey's been retired by 3 schools, and it's just, they churn out some incredible people, but on the local scale today, there's still some players like that who have done incredible things on the court, of basketball and football, and they come from very interesting situations. I did a story on a guy. His name is Dietrich Munford. He's the defensive lineman for Amanda Elsie High School. He was very good. He was very good at sacking the quarterback, big run stopper kind of guy, about 6'3", and he's very good for Amanda Elsie. And they're a school that doesn't have a ton of money. They don't have a ton of things. They don't get new uniforms. They just do the best with what they got. And so during the middle of their season, I think it was right after their season, the tornadoes that came through Rolling Fork and stuff like that, it ended up he lost his cousin, I think his grandmother, and a few other families in those tornadoes. And this was right after football season, so he was going to these football camps. He was going to Mississippi State, I believe, that weekend that the tornadoes hit, and he had just lost some of his family members in these tornadoes, and he still went to these football camps because that's just how important it was. And I did this story about this whole thing, and I talked to him, and he told me something that his dad say, like, in life there's going to be storms. It's just about how you get through those. And the story is kind of about this tragedy fueling him, and he went on to have another really good season. They went to play in the North Half Championship game the following season, which is the game before the state championship game. They ultimately fail, short of the state championship game, but it was truly an incredible season. And you get stories like this where players just battle through these interesting and sometimes very bad situations, but yet the product on the field is just unbelievable. The passion I think that the average person has for their high school in the areas that I cover is almost unmatched anywhere else throughout the state that I've witnessed. When I played high school football, we weren't necessarily a very good team, and people showed up to watch us play, but there's just something added extra when you get the fans of those schools and you start talking about Greenwood football, when you start talking about LaFleur County football. There's just another level of love that they have for those schools. They're very prideful about it, and a lot of times they don't produce the best records, or they're not always going to a state championship game every year. They might have some good players on the team, one or two, but they're not always dominating the competition like some of these bigger schools throughout the state might. But the love that they have, we would go to games at away when LZ was on that championship run towards the North Half Championship. They would just swarm the sidelines of Amanda LZ. It was all yellow and purple. They were so loud you couldn't hear the other side of the stadium. They were so involved. Every time the refs did something, they were letting them have it. It was the most involved high school football game I've ever seen from the community. And it's almost like that with Mississippi Valley State, except I think the expectations of that program were pretty low, just purely because of the history of it. But there's definitely pride every time they hire a new coach. It's like they just won the Super Bowl. They are so excited that maybe this is the time that we can revitalize to those days where we were winning games. They haven't had a winning season since 2006. So, and that's just going positive. 6-5 was the last time. 2006. So it's been a long time, and they are hungry for it. And coaches have tried, and it's very hard to win there. There's not a lot of money. The facilities aren't that great. You're not in a great location. If you want to go bowling or something, you got to go to Cleveland or Greenville. There's not much to do. And so I think what they try to do is just sell the idea of we're here to play football. And a lot of times they get a few good athletes come out there who just love to play football, and they might not have anywhere else to go. But the love from the people there it's almost unmatched. Delta character. There's almost too many to choose from. I think part of me wants to go back to the days where it's like, they kind of dance in their fancy suits, they walk around with a cane, that kind of thing. But reality is, Delta character to me, it's somebody who they've born there, raised there, and they're just ingrained within the community. They know everybody knows them. You can't talk to them without hearing some sort of funny story that they've done, they've heard, their cousin did, their brother did, something like that. And they typically have some weird side quest going on. I've talked to people who they raise pigeons. I've talked to people who they coach youth football, but on the they're also car dealerships. They work at car dealerships. I've talked to people who they coach basketball. I think typically they've always got some sort of odd thing going on. I've talked to even the kids. I did a story on some kids who they graduated from Pillow Academy, and one of the things they do when they graduate is, hey, we're gonna go buy a school bus. And they bought a school bus and they turned it into like this ultimate hangout spot on wheels. They redid the inside. They got couches in the school bus. They got bunk beds in the back, and they just take it everywhere. They sometimes use it. They drive it out there to sleep in, and they go duck hunting in the morning and stuff like that. They've always got. They're always trying to figure out how to do something. They're always moving. They're always doing something. We used to have a managing editor at this newspaper. It wasn't there for incredibly long. His name was Dan Marsh. He came from Arkansas, and when he first got there, we're a fairly small town. I think he was smaller than the town he covered, and he'd been on working this job for about 3 months. And he said, well, if this ain't the busiest small town I've ever seen in my life, because there is just something going on. These people, they throw parties, they throw events. They're very prideful of where they are and where they came from. And it trickles down through almost every person there, from the people you meet in grocery stores to the people you meet at football games or the plumbers. I mean, they've all got some sort of interesting thing that they're doing on the side. Well, Tim I haven't met many people in his position. Like, I haven't met a ton of editor publishers for a ton of other newspapers, but I can't imagine there's anyone better. I mean, the guy has been in the business for so long. Nothing gets through this guy. No, almost nothing wrong gets through this guy. He knows almost everything. He knows almost everybody. He's almost too good at his job. And it has been fascinating to see him work. He is there before anybody. But when the day starts, he's there for anybody. And he's there when you leave. I mean, he is constantly working. And he's someone to look up to for somebody who's just starting out like me, to try to find their foot in this world of media. And to have a work ethic like that, I mean, I don't think you could go wrong. And he's just so good, and you could tell, like, through his writing that it's almost just world class. I think if you are able to go out and find a story, an angle, or something like that, and you're able to produce it in a way, whether it be writing, it could be media, it could be any sort of film or anything like that. But if you're able to tell that story in such a way that people will remember maybe what that person went through or something interesting about them, there's probably no better place to do it than the Delta, because just the amount of characters that are there. I think it's just storytelling. I think that's truly the art of what most media people strive for. Everybody's got a story, there's no better place to find one than the Delta. And the ability to show somebody in a light into which people can view, whether it's reading, whether it's media. I think at the end of the day, if you're able to take somebody's story, like a feature story, and write it in such a way that it really shows this person's character of what they've been through, and it becomes this beautiful piece of art, I think there's no better way to learn about somebody or what somebody's been through than to read it. Videos are great. Documentaries are great. But describing details the way you can get into someone's mind in the way that they see it, there's something almost beautiful about that. And it's almost forbidden. I mean, you can't really get that in digital media. You can't hear what they're thinking, really. You can only see what they do. And in media, especially writing, you're able to get inside someone's head and learn what they're thinking. And maybe the person writing it can show it from an angle that most people could never think of. Well, for one, I think there's just too many stories that are too good to not know. One of the stories that I've learned recently, he's Senator David Jordan. He's a state senator, and I think he's about 90 years old, and he still serves as a state senator, but he has this very interesting background. He's born in Greenwood, born and raised, and he graduated from Mississippi Valley, I want to say in the 50s. and he was raised as the son of a sharecropper. He was born in the 30s, I want to say. And he has this very interesting story of dealing with racism in the area, and he's written a book about it. He'll love to tell you that he's written a book. He's dealt with all this racism and things like that in this area, and yet he's transcended all these issues, and he became a state senator, and he was very very intent on changing the state flag. He gave this fiery speech about this story of his brother fought in World War II. And they're both from Greenwood. He fought in World War II, and it ends, and he comes home back to Greenwood. And apparently some of the local farmers in the area, they've brought in some German POWs from Germany or wherever, and they're working on these farms. And so he comes back from World War II, his brother, and he's trying to go into this restaurant. Well, back then, a black guy couldn't just walk into a restaurant, so he had to go to the back door. And he went to the back door, and they wouldn't let him in. They wouldn't serve him a hamburger. He couldn't get nothing. And on the way out, he looked through the window, and sitting inside were these two German POWs eating sandwiches. And I mean, when he told me that, my jaw hit the floor. Like, that is the craziest thing I've ever heard, that this man couldn't get a sandwich, and he just fought through the country against those people that are eating in there, and he's not even allowed. And it was such a crazy moment, and you get stories like this that are just unbelievable, and there's no better place than the Delta to find them. I think to me what makes a good storyteller are details. I think a lot of people, you could tell a story, but I think details really make the story. They shine lights on an aspects of things that typically kind of get thrown to the wayside when you just describe something large or general idea. Like for me, when I describe basketball, or if I'm talking about a basketball story, I think it's interesting if you maybe describe how they scored off a certain move, or was the play, did he bobble the ball when he caught a touchdown, or something like these are just very small things. And then, was it a big moment? What did the crowd say? What did if you could find them, what did the student's mother do when he scored a touchdown? Things like that make stories. And then also talking to the people involved. I mean, it's very easy to just talk to the coach. But, maybe sometimes if it's the last game of a football season and it's a particularly good football player, ask his mom something. What was it like for him to go through this? I mean, there's so many details you can find that can truly make his story blossom.